back to another video. I'm Sarah and I have moved in the past year from the UK to Australia, and for this week's video I wanted to maybe share some insight as to how I am making being away from our family and friends just that little bit easier. It is without a doubt the hardest part of being on the other side of the world is being away from our friends and family, but there are a few things I have been doing to just lessen the pain slightly. And other expats and other people that have made big moves that I speak to, it's all the same. If only we could bring all of our friends and family to where we're living. So hopefully you find this useful and you might be able to incorporate some of the hints and tips for yourself. So I think it's probably worth a bit of a background as to kind of what my life has looked like to date. So I grew up in the south of England, and in 2007 my mum, my stepdad and my two siblings moved from England to Canada. So my dad and my stepmum stayed in England, and I spent most of my kind of late childhood and teenage years kind of bouncing between England and Canada, each time having to say goodbye to people on either side. And then in 2017, I moved from Canada back to the UK. So from 2017, I've been doing the bouncing back and forth in the opposite direction, as I go and see my mum and my siblings in Canada. But Jamie, my dad and my stepmum have all been in the UK. So I guess the point I'm trying to make there is I have been at the long distance family game for quite a while, and I've really, I guess, learnt some hints and tips along the way with that. When we first moved to Canada, and up until recently actually, I really struggled with being away from my family, to the point where it would actually ruin our time together, to be honest. Even before I landed, if, let's say I was living in the UK, I'd go back to Canada for a week. Even before I've arrived in Canada, even before I've reunited with my family, I would already be crying about the fact that I was going to have to say goodbye again. And then, we'd see each other, it would be all nice and rosy for a couple of days. And then halfway through the trip, I would start to get really teary and down. And it really kind of ruined the mood of this time that my family and I had together, really. So what I wanted to share with you today is, in recent times, I've got so much better. I feel so much more fulfilled with the time that I do spend with my family when we are together. And I just wanted to share some of those hints and tips with you. So I think when you're apart from family and friends, you kind of go through different phases. So I've kind of split up my hints and tips into these few phases. So the first phase is, I guess, just normal life. We're living in this new place, we're just going about our business, and things that you can do during that daily life and regular routine to kind of help with the homesickness. Then you've got the time that you are actually with your family, and I guess the short period before that, you're really excited, you're together, and how you can, I guess, do some things during that time to make being apart easier. And then there's the worst part, there's the goodbye, there's the horrible airport hugs and that moment before you go through security, and then shortly after maybe you come back home or you've been left by your family. So I guess those are the three phases. Daily life, being with your family and saying goodbye are the main categories that I've got some things that I do to really help alleviate some of the pain and sadness of being away from friends and family. So let's talk about that regular routine, that daily life. And the first thing that's really helped me is starting to build that circle, that social circle here in Perth. Now, there are a few ways that I have been doing this. The first is obviously work. I'm not working yet, but we have made some friends through Jamie's work. And you've already got some common ground there because you're obviously all working in the same place. So yeah, work is great. And then everything else I've done here has been down to, I guess, the power of the internet and social media. So I vlogged my time left experience. So that is a website that you can go on that matches you up with 4 or 5 other people, and you'll all go out for dinner, male, female, all walks of life, maybe some locals, some people new to the city, and they are in cities, I don't know whether it's across Australia or across the world, but Time Left is in lots of locations. Bumble for Friends, Bumble BFF, I've also had some success with, both in Aberdeen and here in Perth. So that's much like a dating app, except for people looking for friends. And yeah, I find that takes a bit more energy because you're dealing with people on kind of a one-to-one basis, but can definitely recommend Bumble for Friends. The main way I've made friends since being in Perth is actually a lot of meetup groups, particularly on Instagram. So I'll just share some of the experiences that I have had recently. So with Friend Her, I went on a wine tour to the Swan Valley, which was a great way to just kind of let your hair down and meet some new people who also like to maybe have a few wines. It was great fun. They picked us up in a party bus, which was a bit of a shock to the system at 10 o'clock in the morning, but we all kind of relaxed into it as the day went on. And yeah, just really fun in amongst the wineries in the Swan Valley. And yeah, met lots of like-minded people there and can definitely recommend Friend Her. They tend to do a bit more of kind of like party, let your hair down sort of vibes. They do boat parties, bottomless brunches, the wine tours, etc. And yeah, have a look on Instagram. Really, really fun group there. And the other group that I have been to a couple of times now is the Perth Sisterhood Society. So they tend to do things like Pilates on the beach, or I have also been to a sunset walk with them. So that's great to just, watch the sunset and catch up with some particularly girls who... Most people going to these groups are going through something similar. They're all trying to make friends in a new place. So there's always lots in common and lots to talk about. And yeah, if you just Google Perth meetup groups or have a look on Instagram for Perth meetup groups, there are quite a few, and I highly recommend. It's just, I find in a group setting it's quite easy to have a bit of a chat and just kind of get a feel for who you might want to be friends with. And then it's also just a case of saying yes to as much as possible. For example, the Brooke McIntosh send-off meetup that I vlogged as well. It was a bit, it was 5 o'clock in the morning on a beach, didn't know anybody that was going, but I thought, you know what, this is a case where I just need to say yes to something. And I went and again made some friends that I have kept in touch with since. So say yes to lots of things, and hopefully those meetup groups are gonna provide as much success as they have with me. And the other way I have made friends is just through social media. So obviously I am sharing our journey, and I've had a few people reach out through that, and I think it's a great way, you kind of know, people feel like they know me, which is great, and they I guess will know if we are likely to be friends or not. So yes, if you do see somebody on social media that is going through something similar, just reach out. The worst they can do is ignore you or say no thanks, but as I say, I have thoroughly met the couple of people that I have got in touch with through YouTube and Instagram. So that's number one on my list of how I'm making being away from friends and family easier. It's just saying yes to as much as possible and building my circle. This did take a while. I think I've spoken to a few people who are maybe 6 weeks, 2 months into their time here, and I'm looking like I'm going to all these things and making all these friends. It did take a while for me to get to a place where I guess I had the energy for that. The first 6 weeks, the first couple of months, it was just logistics after logistics and admin and all of that stuff. So it's only been the past month or two that I have really embraced that say yes to everything mindset and started going to these meetup groups. So take it easy, but once you are ready, definitely get out there. So the other thing you can do in that kind of day-to-day life phase is try and make regular contact with your friends and family, and then treat them like you're going out for coffee. So I think previously I would have maybe loosely said, let's catch up on a Monday, or yeah, I'll speak to you on the weekend, or something like that. And then the weekend would come and go and we've never quite lined up our schedules or something like that. So what I do now is, I say, when can we chat this week? Okay, we have a time. And then my day really does revolve around making sure I'm available at that time to catch up with that person. And that's not while I'm doing the washing up or while I'm driving to work. You can do that as well, but making sure that at a regular interval I am sitting down, that person has my complete undivided attention, is a really good way of making sure you're keeping up. And I think also what I find, and we talk about this quite a lot in my family, is if you catch up once a month or even less frequently than that, you're obviously just talking about the highlights. Maybe you've been on holiday, maybe you've got a promotion, maybe something big has happened in that month that you want to catch up about. But I guess you lose the daily details. However, if you come to something more frequent, like a weekly catch-up, even if it's just for 20 minutes or half an hour, you find yourself talking about your haircut and your doctor's appointment and the fact that you maybe went out for dinner somewhere interesting, and you really feel like you're in that person's day-to-day life. So yes, I do try and catch up approximately weekly with my closest family, and I do find that helps with missing them. So that's what I do in my kind of daily life to kind of ease some of the pain of being away from family. And then we kind of move into that really exciting part of being together just before and then as you actually come to spend time with each other. And especially if you've lived with people, I think what I found was I'd arrive and basically we'd just go back to what normal life used to be like when I lived there. So like, for example, I would arrive maybe for a week or two, and basically everyone just gets back to their daily routine and their daily life as if you were still living there. So, you're going to the supermarket, people are still keeping up with their pre-arranged social things. You're not necessarily giving the time the kind of effort it deserves, really. So what we do now is I really try and make a conscious effort to have a plan for when I'm with my family. And this has a couple of benefits. So the first is, leading up to being together, you get the excitement of, I guess, planning things. So we've often got a Google Docs or a Google Sheets or a spreadsheet or something where we're all just kind of throwing out ideas of what we want to do, what we might like to eat, where we might like to go. And that really helps with that kind of keeping things positive when you're not together. And then you have the benefit of when you are together, you get to do these things that really feel like you're spending your time intentionally. And these don't have to be grand gestures like staying in a 5-star hotel or going out for a really expensive meal. Some examples of things that we have, planned and carved out the time for are going apple picking or going to an orchard to buy apples and then spending the afternoon baking apple related goods. Or my mum and I, a couple of Christmases ago, we, using her sewing machine, made some bunting for her camper van, which was a great activity. My dad and my stepmom, we might carve out the morning to make crumpets or just little things like that, but you really are intentionally spending that time together. And I find that is really helpful in making me feel like I'm making the most of the time with my family. And yeah, then I come away from the trip really feeling like we have done some really cool things and made a lot of new memories, because we don't have all the time in the world as if we were living with each other to make those memories. So we've got to really cram that time full, which I really enjoy doing. So that's when you are spending time with your family, and then we move into the phase where you are saying goodbye and either they've just left or you're maybe coming back to real life after saying goodbye. And there are a few things that I do here to also kind of ease that pain. So the first is making sure we have at least something penciled in for when we'll see each other again. That doesn't have to be a concrete plan, you don't have to have flights booked, but just having some idea of when you might see each other again just makes it feel like it's not a goodbye forever and it's see you soon. So I think when I was last in Canada with my family, we were getting a bit sad towards the end of the trip. And then we did really start thinking about, okay, when are we next going to see each other? What does the next trip look like? And again, that brings a bit more of a positive spin to the goodbye. And yes, it does become a see you soon and not a goodbye forever. The other thing that I find really helpful is to have something planned for when you get back, just to make things a bit more positive for when you get back, especially if you've been on a trip, maybe you've taken some time off work, you're coming back and you're heading straight back to work, which is usually not going to be a very positive experience anyway, getting back into that kind of work routine. So just having something positive to look forward to, I find very helpful. Doesn't have to be anything big. Maybe it is a weekend away or another trip that you're planning, or maybe it's just, a walk around the park, a trip to the beach, catching up with friends that you haven't seen for a while over brunch or something like that. But just have something, again, that's quite intentional, that is positive, that you can look forward to for when you get back. And then the last thing that I do, and which actually took me the longest to kind of learn and come to terms with, and covers all of the phases, is just to accept that this is really hard. I think I spent a lot of time worrying that maybe my sister wasn't as upset about saying goodbye as I am, or maybe I shouldn't be feeling like this, and that I was ruining the trip because I was feeling down about saying goodbye, or something that I was being quite hard on myself. But in more recent times, I have just, if I am sad, I've just accepted that, yeah, being away from the people that you love is really, really hard. And you can both enjoy the place that you're living and be happy with the decision you made, and still be sad that you miss your family. Those two things don't have to be separate, they can exist at the same time. I am not a professional therapist by any means. If you are really struggling, please reach out to some professional help. Don't suffer in silence. Talk to your friends, talk to your family. There are lots of people going through similar things, and I think when I have opened up about some of the things that I'm going through, especially with other people that have moved, a lot of people are going through the same thing. So as I say, please don't suffer in silence, and just accept that this is hard, and that's okay. So hopefully that's given you some insight as to how I help with some of the less rosy sides of being away from home and away from your family. As I say, I'm no expert, these are just things that I do, and I would love to hear if there's anything that you do that helps. Otherwise, I will sign off this video here. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Throw us a like, really helps, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!